The house on Blackwood Lane. It started as a dare, isn't that always the case? A group of us, bored out of our minds one crisp October evening, decided to explore the abandoned house on Blackwood Lane. I don't know why it appealed to me. Maybe I wanted to prove something to myself or to them. Maybe I was just stupid. The house had stood empty for as long as anyone could remember, its windows broken, the paint peeling off in long strips like dead skin. People said it was haunted, said a family had disappeared there years ago, leaving everything behind like they had just walked out for a stroll and never came back. Their car was still in the garage, untouched since 1973. It wasn't that I believed in ghosts or anything, I didn't. But there was something about the way people talked about the house, in low whispers, that made me curious. What was the big deal? What was inside? I had to know. So when they dared me, I didn't hesitate. I grabbed a flashlight and my phone, and I made my way down the road to Blackwood Lane. I felt the air change the moment I crossed onto the property. It was subtle at first, just a prickling on the back of my neck. But then the wind picked up, cold and sharp, swirling dead leaves around my feet. The trees surrounding the house seemed taller, more twisted than I remembered. It was as if they were watching me, closing in. I pushed the gate open. It groaned like it hadn't been touched in years, and I stepped onto the path that led to the front porch. The house loomed before me, its dark windows staring down like hollow eyes. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat, but I wasn't about to turn back now. Not after making such a show of accepting the dare. The door wasn't locked. It swung open with a slow, menacing creak that seemed to echo through the entire structure. I stepped inside, shining my flashlight across the dusty floor. The air inside was stale and thick with the scent of mildew. My light caught the edges of broken furniture, old family photos still hanging crooked on the walls. There was an odd sense of stillness, like time had just stopped here. I wandered deeper into the house, past the living room and into the hallway. Every step I took kicked up dust that swirled around in the beam of my flashlight. I could hear my own breathing, too loud, too fast. There was a staircase to my left leading up to the second floor, but something in me didn't want to go up there just yet. Instead, I moved toward the kitchen. The door was ajar, and as I pushed it open, my flashlight flickered. I cursed under my breath and smacked it a few times. It stayed on, but the dim glow was barely enough to cut through the shadows. The kitchen looked like something out of a time capsule. A rusted fridge stood against the far wall, a table and chairs in the center. One chair toppled over like someone had left in a hurry. But what drew my attention was the sink. It was filled with water, clear water. That didn't make any sense. There hadn't been running water here in years. I hesitated, stepping closer, the beam of my flashlight bouncing over the surface of the water. My reflection looked back at me, distorted and twisted. Suddenly, the water rippled. My heart stopped. I stood frozen, my flashlight trembling in my hand, as the ripples grew larger, more violent, and then something broke the surface. A hand. I staggered back, the flashlight slipping from my grip and clattering to the floor. I scrambled to pick it up, shining it back on the sink. The water was still empty. I stood there breathless, every nerve in my body screaming at me to leave, but something kept me rooted to the spot. Then I heard it, a soft tapping, like fingernails on glass. It was coming from upstairs. I didn't want to go. Every instinct told me to run, to get out, but I couldn't. It was like the house had some kind of hold on me, pulling me deeper into its grasp. I found myself moving toward the staircase, my legs heavy, my chest tight. The steps creaked beneath my weight as I climbed, each sound echoing through the empty house. The tapping continued, slow and deliberate, guiding me up, up, up. When I reached the top, I turned toward the sound. The door at the end of the hall was cracked open. I moved toward it, my feet dragging, my body acting on its own as if I had no control. The tapping grew louder, faster, like it knew I was coming. I pushed the door open, and my breath caught in my throat. There was a mirror on the wall across from me, an old ornate thing, the glass cloudy with age. And in the mirror, I saw myself. But it wasn't me. The figure staring back at me was twisted, wrong. Its skin was gray, its eyes sunken in black, its mouth stretched into a grin far too wide. And then it moved. Not me, it, the reflection. It raised its hand, tapping a long, bony finger against the glass. Tap, tap, tap. I stumbled back, my flashlight flickering again. I couldn't breathe. I turned to run, but the door slammed shut behind me. The room went cold, so cold I could see my breath hanging in the air. And the tapping continued, louder, more frantic. I spun around, my back pressed against the door, and I watched as the thing in the mirror leaned closer, its mouth opening, stretching impossibly wide. And then it spoke. Come home. The lights went out. I don't remember how I got out of the house. The next thing I knew, I was outside, gasping for air, my heart hammering in my chest. I didn't stop running until I was miles away, my legs burning, my lungs aching. But the worst part? When I got home and looked in the mirror, there was dirt under my fingernails, and I don't remember digging.